At Thanksgiving, my sister discovered I had $12 million, and my family demanded I give it to her, claiming she deserved it more. Hello everyone, before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and allows us to continue bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing. Thank you very much. Now, let's begin the video. I'm using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. So I'm Anna, 38, female, and I need to get this off my chest. Do you know those family dynamics where one child can do no wrong while the other appears to be invisible? Yes? Welcome to my life. Postov. Everything was very typical until I was 8. I was an only kid, and while my parents were not particularly warm and fuzzy, they were present, I suppose. Mom would help me with my homework, and Dad would occasionally take me fishing on Lake St. Clair. We weren't the Brady Bunch, but we were fine. Then came the night that changed everything. I recall my Aunt Laura showing up at 2 a.m. and telling me to pack a suitcase because Mom was in the hospital. My sister Emily was on her way, but something was wrong. She wasn't meant to arrive for another 2 months. The following few weeks were a flurry of hospital visits and hush-hush chats. Emily was really little. She looked like one of my baby dolls, but with all these tubes and cables. I wasn't allowed to touch her or get too close. That was the first time I felt it, an invisible wall forming between me and the rest of my family. When they eventually brought Emily home, our house turned into a sterilized bubble. Mom had an obsession with germs. I'm talking industrial strength disinfectant, hand sanitizer stations in each room, and constant cleaning. The harsh odor of bleach still causes me distress to this day. Here's the part that really messed me up. Whenever I showed the slightest symptom of illness, I was whisked off to either Grandma Helen's or Aunt Laura's house. I mean, every time. Sneeze once, pack your bags. A mild cough, you're off to see Grandma. At first, I thought it was enjoyable. Grandma Helen would bake cookies, and Aunt Laura had a fantastic collection of Nancy Drew books that I was working through. But children aren't stupid. After a while, you begin to understand what's really going on. You're not being sent away on adventures. You are being handled like a threat, as if your very existence could harm your beloved sister. I tried everything to gain their attention in a healthier manner. Honestly, everything. Got all A's. Mom would scarcely look up from Emily's latest doctor's appointment calendar. Won first prize in the science fair with a project about renewable energy. Dad just asked if I could store the display board in the garage because Emily is allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a thing, quote unquote? The real kicker came when I was 12. For months I'd been practicing for the school talent show, teaching myself to perform Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. Emily had a 99.1 fever the night of the show. Guess who didn't have anyone in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire family, including both sets of grandparents, attended Emily's 15-minute flute recital, during which she barely managed hot cross buns. Emily quickly learned how to use the system. By the age of 7, she had outgrown any real health difficulties, but that didn't stop her. Headache? Stay home. Feeling tired? Someone else should do her chores. Worried about a test? Mom would literally call the school to have the deadline extended in any cases. I began spending more and more time in my room, immersed in books about art history and antiques. My room became my sanctuary, mostly because Emily claimed she was allergic to my lavender air freshener, so it was the only place she wouldn't go. Do you know what's actually wrong? When she pretended to be sick, a part of me felt grateful. At the very least, I'd be taken to Grandma Helen's, where someone would ask about my day or show some interest in me. Grandma was the one who sparked my interest in vintage jewelry. She had an incredible collection of costume pieces that she let me organize and catalog. I suppose I should have regarded that as prophetic. The worst thing wasn't even the blatant favoritism. It was how they rewrote history to excuse their actions. Emily just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Anna's always been so independent. Anna understands that her sister has special needs. No, I didn't understand. I was a child who couldn't grasp why having a good immune system made me less deserving of love. Looking back, I can see how those years shaped me. The persistent message that I was somehow unsafe or inconvenient to be around doesn't just go away. But hey, at least it taught me to be self-sufficient. When no one checks your homework or cares about your triumphs, you quickly learn to be your own cheerleader. Agua. High school, the majority either loved it or loathed it. Me, I regarded it as a ticket out. While Emily was establishing her drama empire in middle school, I was laying the groundwork for my own escape. Nothing inspires you to accomplish more than knowing no one will do it for you. Now, remember how I said I spent hours sorting Grandma Helen's jewelry? That taught me the value of organization and attention to detail. In high school, I applied that same mindset to everything. Color-coded notes, meticulous study plans, everything in its place. Emily mocked me, calling me Rain Man. Very original, sis. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one monitors your failures or your successes, so you do whatever the heck you want. Notice they were too busy helping Emily transfer to her third college in 2 years. But this is where the plot takes an unexpected turn. Bomb, ba-bomb, ba-bomb. I got an entry-level job at Everett and Phillips auction house in Detroit. I won't use the real name for obvious reasons, but if you're in the business, you probably know who I'm talking about. A genuine, high-end establishment with many old money clients. That type of transaction. I began with their estate sales business, which involved documenting the belongings of wealthy individuals after their deaths. Not exactly glamorous, but it paid the bills. The breakthrough. My first several months were very standard, logging countless china sets, categorizing vintage furniture, and so on. Then came the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston was an elderly widow who had died childless, leaving behind what everyone assumed was a huge collection of costume jewelry, rooms filled with the stuff. This is where those hours with Grandma Helen came in useful. I was going through this stack of jewelry when something caught my attention. An Art Deco brooch, nothing too showy, but something about it felt off. The weight wasn't right for costume jewelry, and the clasp was too complex. I spent my whole lunch break researching old jewelry markers and signatures. Stayed late to use the company's membership to several antique jewelry databases. The more I looked, the more certain I became. It was real. Problem was I was the new girl. No one would believe me. So I did what the debate team had taught me, prepared my argument. I spent 2 weeks during lunch breaks and evenings learning everything I could about Art Deco jewelry authentication. Even used my own money to take a basic online gemology course. And finally, I approached my boss, Mr. Harrison, with a full presentation. Comparative images, historical documentation, everything. He barely looked up at first. Sarah, we already cataloged those as costume pieces. You're right, but look at these maker marks. They match perfectly with Cartier's 1925 signatures. That got his attention. Long story short, the quote-unquote costume brooch sold for $47,000 at auction. It turned out to be part of a limited collection created for European nobility in the 1920s. After that, Harrison began trusting me. I was given other artifacts to authenticate. Suddenly, my pointless pastime of sorting Grandma's jewelry became very, very relevant. I dove headfirst into the world of vintage jewelry, took every online course I could afford, spent weekends at estate sales. My apartment became a jewelry scholar's fever dream, walls covered in printouts of vintage hallmarks and authentication procedures. The auction house began seeing real results. I found overlooked treasures. My commission checks started growing. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving, I was saving. The family still didn't care. Sunday dinners were the same. Sarah's still at that antique shop, right? Auction house. And yes, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Chapter Payne. Emily. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys had to see this charm bracelet I got at the mall. But I didn't care anymore. For once, I had something that was entirely mine. Something I was excellent at. The Rothschild collection. Rothschild East. 2 years in, we received the Rothschild estate, a massive old money family. As we cataloged the jewelry, I noticed a fairly unremarkable Art Nouveau piece. I investigated it for 3 days. Turned out to be from a famous French jeweler. Thought lost in World War II. It sold for $238,000. Harrison called me into his office. I thought I was being promoted. And instead, he said, "Sarah, you're wasting your talent here. You should be running your own authentication business." I laughed it off. Start a business with what money, man, Stein? But the idea stuck. Starting from scratch. I began doing freelance authentication projects. Word spread. Private collectors started contacting me. One night, surrounded by jewelry manuals and tools, I realized I could actually do this. So I did. I took out a loan against my car, emptied my savings, and rented a small office above a Chinese restaurant. It smelled like Kung Pao chicken and had bad Wi-Fi, but it was mine. The struggle. Those first months were terrifying. I woke at 4 a.m., calculating how long I had before I ran out of money. My office furniture was a Goodwill card table and a chair I found on the curb. But reputation is everything in high-end jewelry, and my experience at the auction house gave me an edge. I started small, working with local dealers. Word spread. 6 months in, I landed a major gig authenticating a Victorian brooch collection. Discovered 2 rare pieces. Got a 10% commission on the sale. $86,000. More than I'd made in 2 years. That changed everything. I got more calls, including from the auction house on the way driving from said. They on prior since it have last scaling up. By year 2, I hired Jenny, a fresh gemology graduate who reminded me of myself. She's now my head of authentication. We moved to a proper office downtown. Goodbye, Kung Pao. Eventually, we opened offices in Chicago and New York. I spent more time on planes than in my bed. Clients wanted privacy, discretion, and I built a reputation for delivering. Still keeping it quiet. My family still thought I worked at some antique shop. Emily, I have some old jewelry I was going to give to Goodwill. Maybe your little shop wants it. Me having just authenticated a $1.2 million Fabergé piece. Sure, I'll take a look. They never suspected. I wore real Harry Winston to dinner. Emily bragged about her $200 Michael Kors watch. I was wearing a vintage Patek Philippe worth more than her car. They had no clue. Managing growth. By year 5, we had offices in 3 cities, a team of financial advisors, and a custom-built vault that could rival Fort Knox. I lived modestly, a nice house, a high-end, low-profile car. My home office, that's where I splurged. Top-tier authentication equipment and security. And still, Mom introduced me as my other daughter. She works with old jewelry or something. If only they knew, would remark things like, "It's so sweet of Sarah to help out. She must be eating nothing but ramen to manage it." Meanwhile, I had just validated a collection that earned me a commission greater than their mortgage. You know what's strange about success? The more you have, the harder it becomes to explain to people who have always seen you as less. It's like explaining color to someone who's only ever seen in black and white. But by this stage, my company was thriving. We had cornered the Midwest's high-end jewelry authentication market. Our reputation was solid gold. Pun intended. Still, every Sunday, I'd travel to my parents' house for dinner, playing the role of Sarah, the modest antique shop worker. The contrast was ludicrous. I'd spend mornings on conference calls with collectors in Dubai, afternoons authenticating million-dollar pieces, and evenings sitting at my parents' table in deliberately plain clothes, eating Mom's overcooked pot roast. Emily dominated every conversation with tales of her latest marketing triumphs, usually something like successfully bringing her boss's coffee without spilling it. A defining moment. One Sunday stands out. That morning, I closed a 7-figure deal authenticating a long-lost Cartier piece. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' place, still riding the high. Sarah, honey, is everything okay? Your clothes are looking a bit worn, Mom said. Oh, trying to save money, I replied, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater, chosen specifically for its subtlety. Emily quipped, well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry. Dad cut in, be nice, Emily. Not everyone can be as successful as you. I almost choked on my pot roast, but. The anonymous transfers. Around this time, Aunt Laura mentioned my parents were struggling with Emily's student loans and medical bills. Mom casually hinted they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. Despite everything, it was still the home I grew up in. So I began sending them $5,000 a month anonymously. When asked, I claimed I was giving them $1,000 and surviving on rice and beans. They assumed the rest came from Aunt Laura or some unknown benefactor. Emily claimed she inspired the family to pitch in. Watching her spend my money was ironic. The MBA drama. Then Emily announced she wanted to pursue her MBA at a private university, naturally. Mom called me in tears. She needs to maintain certain standards, she said. I upped my monthly contribution to $7,000. It didn't hurt my accounts, but it did sting when they praised Emily for her ambition while still thinking I lived on ramen. The guest lecture. Here's the kicker. I was invited to give a seminar at the very business school Emily wanted to attend. The dean personally requested me to speak on luxury goods and business growth. I had to make up an excuse to miss Sunday dinner. It felt surreal, living a double life. The breaking point, Thanksgiving. The lies weighed on me. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, Mom called, overwhelmed about hosting. She had a herniated disc and couldn't cook. Why don't I handle it this year? I'll have it catered, I offered. Oh, honey, we can't afford a caterer. Don't worry, I've been saving. I hired a high-end catering firm I use for client events. The food cost more than they thought I earned in 2 months, but it was flawless. That morning, I brought my laptop to monitor a major Hong Kong auction for a client. The necklace up for bid was worth millions. Died now. Emily made her usual jabs. Store-bought stuffing. Really, Sarah? But she shut up after tasting the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts. I set up in my old bedroom to monitor the auction. Emily barged in, saw my laptop, and seized the opportunity to humiliate me. She grabbed the laptop and marched into the dining room. Let's see what Sarah is working on. The screen displayed pound. Current balance $12.4 million. Pending contract $485,000. Recent transaction $1.2 million. Quarterly profit $4.2 million. Then quote. The room went silent. Emily stammered, she's rich. Mom laughed. Don't be silly. Sarah works at an antique shop. I stood. Actually, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication firms in the country. Offices in 3 cities. Chaos. Mom, you let us struggle while sitting on millions. I've been sending you $7,000 a month. Mom, that's nothing. Your sister has student loans. Dad, we raised you. You owe us. ... Me. He raised me. You missed every milestone. Saved nothing for my college, but paid for hers. And now you're mad I built something for myself? Something play my Seth. Dessert was awkward. I grabbed my laptop and my Hermes bag, which Mom once called a nice replica, and walked out. The aftermath. Texts poured in, missed calls, social media rants. Emily posted about my betrayal. Even distant relatives chimed in, guilt-tripping me. Aunt Susan, Uncle Bob, even a third cousin's wife. Then they showed up at my office, demanded trust funds, beach house, millions, time. I canceled the monthly transfers. They refused to leave, security escorted them out. Eventually, my lawyer issued a cease and desist. Grandma Helen called. Good for you, she said. About time someone succeeded on their own. 6 months later. I moved. New home, new numbers, business booming. High-profile clients now trust me even more.
Emily's trying to start her own authentication firm. Good luck.
Mom and Dad claim they never wanted my money. Pray for my soul, apparently. And me? I'm free. No more Sunday dinners, no more downplaying, no more financing the Emily show. Sucked up. Just peace. Yes, Grandma Helen's doing great. She's visiting next month to help me catalog a new collection. And Emily, that Cartier bracelet you posted, definitely fake. Just saying.